Okay, it is today what?
Geez, I forgot. Don't ask me. I think it's the 14th, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. Okay, the blondes save the day.
Hey,
it's December 14th, and it's time for the news.
By the way, you don't know this, but I was actually blonde once, but that's a different story.
I have an image of you now in my head. Yes.
We're going to start with the Israelis and Palestinians. The Haaretz newspaper, one of Israel's most prominent papers, held a conference yesterday in New York about the peace. And the first person to actually address the conference was U.S. President Barack Obama. Very interesting move.
Which is quite a surprise.
It's quite a surprise. One of the things that he says that peace that is the only way that Israel can remain a Jewish and democratic state. But we have a few of the sound bites that we want to show you.
Let's see what he said. This is the first Haaretz peace conference ever held, right?
In New York, at least. There was one in California a few weeks before, and there was, of course, one here in Israel.
Right.
But in New York, this was the biggest one, the major one.
Let's hear what President Obama had to say.
Peace is necessary, just, and possible. Peace is necessary because it's the only way to ensure true and lasting security for Israelis and Palestinians, and the only way to ensure that Israel remains a democratic Jewish state. Peace is just, because a two-state solution will finally bring Israelis the peace and normalcy to which they are entitled, and Palestinians the sovereign state and dignity they deserve.
But what does it all mean? So the person for me to ask that is always Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, who's joining us on the phone right now. Tal, I'm asking you because it's all beautiful, and we just saw the American president speak and saying something that is not new. But does it have any kind of political impact, and is anybody in the Israeli administration listening to that from yesterday?
Well, I think, unfortunately, the answer is no. The president gave a very moving and exciting message for whomever is a Haaretz reader, Haaretz subscriber, and all of the very distinguished Haaretz writers, editors, and correspondents. But Haaretz, as a newspaper, even though it is probably the most respected newspaper in Israel, it is very left-wing, and the messages coming out from this conference will usually resonate only in a very, very limited circle of people. We might say that President Obama is in many ways preaching to those who are already convinced.
Right, preaching to the choir, Emma, in that respect, which is one of the sad things, but maybe not necessarily the way to make peace. Tal Shalev, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Ami, yes.
Yeah. Two things I want to add to that, by the way. I think, first of all, I think there were two stars, actually, in that conference yesterday. One was Knesset member Ayman Odeh, head of the Joint List, who apparently gave a very moving speech.
He was received as a rock star.
Exactly. That's really the way to put it.
Right.
And speaking of rock stars,
and also called the Obama of the Arabs.
The Obama of the Arabs. Okay.
I'm
so happy we're having a Haaretz member here with us in the studio. Yes.
And speaking of rock stars, Roger Waters, at least when watching my social media feed, was the other star at the conference, the Pink Floyd band member, who was, of course, one of the largest supporters of the BDS campaign. Just about everybody seemed to have a photo, a selfie with Roger Waters from that conference. So I see you grimacing, but I don't know.
No, I'm grimacing because that's gonna do wonders for Haaretz newspaper.
Yes.
But in the narrative within the country. Yeah.
Now, on to a totally different topic. You said that you were a bit pessimistic about the world a few moments ago when it came to climate. This story makes me feel good. Over the weekend, Canada welcomed Syrian refugees. It actually started the whole thing on Friday, but the media just is still talking about it as we speak. We can see the headline here, PM Trudeau's refugees welcome makes headlines. Justin Trudeau went to the airport and greeted the Syrian refugees personally. It was really just a moving moment to see, as opposed to not only European countries that are sometimes closing their doors, except for Germany at least, which is taking 1 million refugees this year, but to the border down to the south, the United States. The rhetoric there is so different, especially when we listen to Donald Trump and what he's saying about banning Muslims.
Banning Muslims, you have the leader of a country going to the airport and hugging these people.
And giving them coats and giving them warm...
And children singing to show that you can do this differently.
Yes.
And I think that is amazing.
So I want to show you a few of the op-eds around the world and how people
please,
But
please.
first of all, the New York Times editorial is really interesting how it wrote about it. Let's just see what and bring it up. Canada's generosity and Mr. Trudeau's personal warmth and leadership can serve as a beacon for others. In the meantime, it puts to shame the callous and irresponsible behavior of the American governors and presidential candidates who have argued that the United States, for the sake of its security, must shut its doors to all Syrian refugees. Very, very strong words coming from the New York Times editorial about its own leadership in the United States.
It's only gonna, and I want to tell you, we're living in such interesting times because if we're taking just the Haaretz conference, we're looking at that and what the New York Times did several days, a week and a half ago, putting the editorial about gun control at the front page.
Yes.
It's, you know, it's maybe ethically one can argue about it, but it's making and taking a stand.
Definitely.
That not necessarily the country's going by, taking a stand there. And another one.
And the Toronto Star, Canada's probably biggest newspaper, has an op-ed here by Martin Reg Cohen. At a time when much of the world is stooping to new lows, Canadians are cheerfully rising to the occasion. Not because we are better than anyone else, but because our leaders, political, ecumenical, and civil, are belatedly bringing out the best in us. And I like that word belatedly, because it kind of is a small jab at the previous Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, who was using a lot of anti-Muslim rhetoric to get elected, and he failed. And we have Justin Trudeau instead. And just to show the front page of the Toronto Star the day before that welcome of Syrian refugees. Let's look at that front page. Amazing front page.
Right. Saying
there we have.
Wow.
Welcome to Canada.
Nice.
Look at that. In Arabic, below that, it says Ahlan wa Sahlan, welcoming its readers.
Nice.
What a beautiful way for the
It's
largest
like the
paper.
spirit of the commander is going through.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
spirit of the leader is going,
Yeah.
is resonating, beautifully put, is resonating through the people. Just, you know, it goes to show, and here I am to say, it's doable.
Yeah.
It's doable.
It's doable.
They're going to be taking in a short time about 25,000 Syrian refugees compared to the 10,000 that was that the United States said it would take in over maybe a year, but we know it's going to take even longer than that.
Right.
A much bigger country, a much richer country. 25,000 right here in Canada immediately. So
listen, if it wasn't that cold there, we'd move. But it's it's beautifully done. Yeah.
interesting reports coming out from Syria, and this is some American officials telling Bloomberg that only 700 Iranian fighters are left now in Syria. Now, Iran up to about a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago, had over 2,000 soldiers in Syria fighting for the Assad regime. Now they're saying that they're taking out some of these people because they're getting a lot of casualties, especially high-ranking casualties.
As we saw several weeks ago.
Several weeks ago, a general that was killed, and so they're taking out their people.
Taking out their people, time will tell if you know that they'll stay out.
Yes.
That said, you will be following that with us as you keep in charge of the date. Ami, thank you.